Welcome back to the cryptoworld channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and in this video, I'll be sharing my long-term Bitcoin price prediction, talking about this bull market and how long the bull market could actually last for before we can expect the next bear market to start. And I'll also be talking about major price targets for this bull market and when we could expect the bull market to start topping out and how we can know the bull market is topping out. And I'll also be talking about when we could expect the next major altcoin season. So I'll be talking about all of that and more in this video, so definitely watch to the end. First of all, taking a look at the 2-week Bitcoin chart. This is looking at pretty much Bitcoin's entire price history over the last decade, give or take. And if we're looking at the vertical white lines on the chart, these are the Bitcoin halvings. The first Bitcoin halving happened in around November 2012. The second Bitcoin halving happened in July 2016. The third Bitcoin halving happened in around May 2020. And the fourth Bitcoin halving, the next Bitcoin halving, happens next month in April 2024. And these Bitcoin halvings happen roughly once every 4 years. So it's a pretty rare opportunity when we're talking about the Bitcoin halving cycles. And now this video is mainly covering price predictions on the chart, so it's not really going to go too much into detail about the Bitcoin halving itself. So if you want another video talking much more into detail about the Bitcoin halving and what it fundamentally means for Bitcoin, then let me know in the comment section down below. But for now, all you really need to know is the Bitcoin halving is fundamentally bullish, and we usually end up seeing much more bullish price action. In fact, an entire bull market start playing out, usually around the Bitcoin halvings and following the Bitcoin halvings. And so throughout Bitcoin's entire price history, we've seen these huge boom and bust cycles, also known as bull markets and bear markets. Once again, the bull markets usually occur around the halvings and just after the halvings, and then the bear markets usually occur in between the actual halving cycles. And when it comes to breaking out above the previous bull market all-time high, usually that happens after the Bitcoin halving. In fact, usually it's within around 100 to 200 days. So basically within around half a year, give or take, we usually end up seeing the Bitcoin price break out above the previous all-time high around half a year, give or take, after the next Bitcoin halving. Because once again, that's exactly what we saw in the first example, the second example in 2016, and the third example in 2020 going into 2021. But this time around, we are already at Bitcoin all-time highs, and we're still around a month away from the next Bitcoin halving. So this is actually the first time in history that this is happening. And this is happening after another first time for Bitcoin during the bear market. Of course, during the 2022 bear market going into early 2023, we actually saw the Bitcoin price trading below the previous bull market top, which was also another first for the price of Bitcoin. Because usually when we see these bull markets and bear markets play out, we do not end up seeing the bear market actually drop below the previous bull market top. But once again, that was a first for Bitcoin during the last bear market. And right now, this is a first for Bitcoin during this bull market. And so we just have to keep that in mind that this time really is different. We're seeing multiple first-time things happening this cycle that we have never seen other cycles, where the Bitcoin price went lower than normal during the bear market, but during this bull market, we're actually more bullish than we normally are, highly due to the fact that we have the Bitcoin ETFs pumping a lot more money into the market. And so this could potentially mean two things. First of all, it could mean that we're ahead of schedule, which means the ultimate bull market top at some point in the next bear market will come sooner than previously anticipated. Or potentially, we're simply just so much more bullish this time around compared to some of the previous cycles because we're hitting all-time highs before the halving, which has never happened. And so if the bull market plays out roughly over the same length of time, we could end up seeing a much higher top for the Bitcoin bull market. And so those are just some things to think about moving forward. But taking a look at this Bitcoin chart right here, which is also on the 2-week time frame, and we can see in this green zone right here before the Bitcoin halving, this is basically 1 month out from the Bitcoin halving. And usually in this time frame right here, this is actually quite bullish for the price of Bitcoin, looking at historical prices. If we're taking a look at the first example, looking at the first Bitcoin halving in 2012, the 1 month before the halving was actually relatively neutral. We saw a slight short-term pullback and then a bounce back to the upside, basically choppy sideways price action just leading up to the halving. And then once again, following the halving, we saw that next major bull market. If we're looking at the second example, we actually saw a major move to the upside, a pump within around 1 month of the Bitcoin halving. And then we actually saw a short-term pullback before eventually continuing higher later on for the bull bull market just after the halving. And then if we're looking at the 2020 halving, the third example, of course, leading up to the halving, we did have that black swan event, the global sickness that we all know about, which crashed the markets to the downside. And then we saw a major recovery around 1 month before the halving. And then following the halving, we actually saw some choppy sideways price action, basically neutral price action over the next 1 month, give or take. And then we continued on with the bull market much higher. And so overall, we're in a very bullish time in the market right now. Generally speaking, around the halvings, we're usually trending in the bullish direction. Of course, we can see short-term pullbacks, but the larger trend is bullish. And also, we usually end up seeing a major bull market play out in the price of Bitcoin, at least over the next 1 year, give or take, after the Bitcoin halving. Because if we're taking a look at the first example from the first Bitcoin halving to the ultimate bull market top for that specific halving cycle, that was around 370 days, give or take, until the bull market topped out. And so pretty much exactly 1 year after the halving, we saw the bull market top. And then if we're looking at the second example, that was around 520 days, give or take, after the Bitcoin halving, we actually hit that bull market top. And then if we're looking at the third example, from the halving to the ultimate bull market top, that was around 540 days. And so on average, from the actual Bitcoin halving to the next major bull market top, we're talking about give or take around 450 to 500 days. And so potentially we could end up seeing the bull market topping out roughly around mid-2025, and then we could end up entering into the next bear market in the second half of 2025. Because the next Bitcoin halving, the fifth Bitcoin halving, will likely happen in early 2028, sometime around here. And as you can clearly see on this chart right here, we usually end up seeing these Bitcoin bear markets occur right in the middle of these Bitcoin halving cycles. And so simply based on history, this is the most likely outcome. Of course, nothing is guaranteed, but the most likely outcome based on historical data is simply we're going to see a bull market over the next 1 year, give or take. And then somewhere perhaps in around mid-2025, we could end up seeing the bull market actually top out and we start entering the next bear market in the second half of 2025. And generally speaking, the Bitcoin bear markets occur for around 1 year, give or take, before we eventually start recovering back to the upside, getting ready for the next bull market. And so now we know a rough time frame for this bull market, when we could perhaps expect the bull market to continue to play out and reach a top and ultimately hit the next bear market. But when it comes to price predictions, what we can actually expect, how high the price could potentially go for this bull market. And now obviously it's extremely difficult to predict the exact bull market top from where we are right now. We're still around a year away potentially, or a year and a half away from the ultimate bull market top. And so predicting an exact price level where we're exactly going to top out around a year from that event is obviously extremely difficult to do. And so just keep in mind, these price targets are by no means guaranteed at all. They're just rough estimates based on the data that we have in front of us. But with that being said, if we're taking a look at the Fibonacci retracement tool, looking at the 1618 Fibonacci extension, historically speaking, this has been pretty accurate at least predicting major corrections, but more recently actually predicting the bull market top. For example, if we're looking at the first Bitcoin halving cycle, from the very first bull market top down to the first bear market bottom, which that bear market occurred during 2011, if we take a look at the Fibonacci retracement tool on the logarithmic settings, that gives us the 1618 Fibonacci extension, which was sitting at around $180, give or take, right around where we hit a major top in the price before a major crash back to the downside. And now, obviously, ultimately, we did end up seeing the continuation of the bull market later on after that major correction, but that was still an important level on the chart to pay attention to. And if we're looking at the 2017 bull market, of course, taking a look at the Fibonacci retracement tool from the previous bull market top back in 2013 down to the bear market bottom, we ended up seeing the price of Bitcoin hit that 1618 Fibonacci extension near the end of the 2017 bull market. And right when we hit that Fibonacci extension, we actually saw a major correction back to the downside of around 30 to 40% back to the downside before actually rebounding and having one last leg to the upside for the bull market. And if we're looking at the most recent example of this playing out, looking at this Fibonacci extension from the 2017 bull market top down to the 2018 bear market bottom, and that placed the 1618 Fibonacci extension sitting at around $62,000, which obviously the 2021 bull market topped out very close to $62,000. And so overall, we've actually always hit this 1618 Fibonacci extension before eventually topping out, and usually we top out just after actually hitting that extension. And if we're taking a look at the next 1618 Fibonacci extension from the bull market top down to the bear market bottom, that gives us the 1618 Fibonacci extension sitting at around $170,000, give or take. And so once again, based on history so far, every time we've hit that Fibonacci extension, so that could be a possible price target for the bull market around 170K. But we could also potentially look at this as diminishing returns because each bull market top is actually a little bit lower, a little bit closer towards the 1618 Fibonacci extension. And the most recent bull market top back in 2021 actually only just hit that Fibonacci extension, and we didn't really go a lot higher than that level. And so if that's the case, if we're actually seeing diminishing returns for the bull market tops, then perhaps we don't actually hit the 1618 Fibonacci extension. So perhaps we top out around 140 or 150,000 rather than 170,000. But once again, as I said earlier in the video, this time around, we've actually seen multiple first times for Bitcoin, or like, for example, hitting the all-time high before the halving or going lower than the previous bull market top during the bottom of the bear market. And so this time around, we're actually seeing multiple new things that have never happened before in Bitcoin's history. And also this time around, we have Bitcoin ETFs on Wall Street, spot Bitcoin ETFs that have never been in any other bull market. And so just keep that in mind as well. Of course, we could continue much higher than this 1618 Fibonacci extension beyond 170K. But just as a rough estimate, a rough price target for the bull market, I do expect the price to at least hit 100K per Bitcoin for this bull market. And a reasonable bull market top prediction could be around 150K for the bull market top. But if those Bitcoin ETFs actually play a much bigger role this time around, because once again, we have not seen Bitcoin ETFs actually play out in other Bitcoin bull markets. And so if that's the case, if that actually is speeding up this bull market and we're seeing much more bullish price action than we've previously seen in other bull markets, then of course it is possible we could reach prices like 200K or beyond. But honestly, I don't expect much higher than 200K, at least in this cycle. Once again, my base case is at least over 100K, most likely around 150K. But if we're seeing massive inflows into the Bitcoin ETFs and other countries, for example, starting to adopt Bitcoin, that could push the price a lot higher. And these moving averages right here, by the way, make up the Pi cycle top indicator, which so far throughout Bitcoin's history has been a relatively accurate indicator because it's basically predicted pretty much every major top in the price of Bitcoin. As you can see, when the blue moving average, the blue line crosses above the white moving average, that usually signals a major top in the price of Bitcoin. Because as we can see, we saw exactly that happen back in the 2013 pump, in the early 2013 pump, and also for the 2013 bull market top. We saw two signals at both of those major highs in the price of Bitcoin. And then we saw another major crossover between these moving averages in the Pi cycle top indicator, another major crossover right at the 2017 bull market top. And we also saw this blue moving average cross right over the top of the white moving average, right around the first major top of the 2021 Bitcoin bull market. And once again, you can get these moving averages by just searching up on TradingView Pi cycle top indicator. And so once again, when these two moving averages are starting to move closer and closer together, that is one indicator telling us that we're starting to get closer towards a potential bull market top. But right now, these two moving averages are still quite far apart, which basically means we still have a decent way to go for this bull market. If you're new to all of this, you're not too late, at least not yet. And so if there's anyone that wants to get involved in crypto, share this video with them because time is running out for this bull market. But as of right now, we still have time to go. And if we're taking a look at the monthly Bitcoin chart, each one of these candles is an entire month of Bitcoin price action. And if we're taking a look at the monthly Bitcoin RSI, just recently, over the last couple of months, we've finally seen the monthly Bitcoin RSI re-enter into overbought territories above 70 in the RSI. But throughout Bitcoin's history, this always happens in the major bull markets. And in fact, the RSI is sustained well above 70, well in the overbought territories for quite some time during the length of the bull market. And so once again, right now, we're only just entering into overbought territories in the monthly RSI. And if we're taking a look at other times where the monthly RSI has just entered into overbought territories, And if we're looking at the corresponding signal in the price, where the Bitcoin price was actually during that time, we can take a look at this first example when the monthly Bitcoin RSI entered into overbought territories. That happened right near the end of 2012, and we still had a major bull market ahead of us, even though the RSI was already entering into overbought territories. And if we're looking at the second example, we saw the monthly Bitcoin RSI enter into overbought territories right near the end of 2016, entering into early 2017. And at that stage, we still had pretty much one solid year of bull market before eventually seeing the next bear market. And if we're looking at the third example, we saw the monthly Bitcoin RSI enter into overbought territories right near the end of 2020, around November 2020. And from that point, we still had around half a year of crazy bullish price action, but the ultimate bull market top actually occurred roughly around 1 year later. And so once again, this is basically a signal telling us that we have basically around a year to go before the next major bull market top. And right now, we're just seeing this early signal flash right now. And we also usually see the Bitcoin bull market start topping out right when the monthly Bitcoin RSI actually reaches above 90. Because this red zone right here is in between 90 and 100, which is the maximum limit. 100 is the maximum limit for the RSI. And so when we start seeing the monthly Bitcoin RSI approach 80, 85, 90 in the monthly Bitcoin RSI, those are the levels where we usually start getting very close to a bull market top. And I'll also make sure to keep you up to date on what's happening here in these indicators throughout the next year or so, throughout the next bull market that we're seeing right now. And so make sure you subscribe to this channel with notifications turned on so that you don't miss out on those important updates where we could potentially start taking profits perhaps in a year from now. And if we're taking a look at the Bitcoin dominance chart on the weekly time frame right now, once again, these vertical lines right here are the Bitcoin halvings. And usually around 1 to 2 years before the halvings, we see a major bullish trend, a bullish move in the Bitcoin dominance, where Bitcoin is outperforming a lot of the altcoin market coming up to the halving. And then usually right around the halving, just before the halving, we end up seeing the Bitcoin dominance actually kind of slow down and somewhat flip more neutral. And that's actually what we've seen more recently. We've seen the Bitcoin dominance basically chop around sideways over the recent weeks and months. And that's quite similar to what we saw last time. We were relatively neutral and actually saw a bit of a pullback from the local high in the Bitcoin dominance just before the halving. And also just before the previous Bitcoin halving, we saw the Bitcoin dominance break to the downside below this trend line of support, this bullish line of support. And we've seen exactly that happen again this cycle with the Bitcoin dominance breaking below this trend line of support right here, this yellow line, which was sitting at around 53 in the Bitcoin dominance and is now sitting closer towards around 56 in the Bitcoin dominance and heading a lot higher because obviously it's an ascending line. And if we're taking a look at what happened after the Bitcoin halving in the previous Bitcoin halving cycle for the Bitcoin dominance, we actually saw a major move to the downside followed by a major bounce back to the upside. And so ultimately that was just a very large choppy sideways price action. And then we ended up seeing a massive altcoin season back to the downside. But that altcoin season actually occurred roughly around 230 days, so around 7 to 8 months, give or take, after the Bitcoin halving to when that altcoin season actually started. And once again, between the halving and that major altcoin season, we did see a small altcoin season between the halving and then. And so if history were to repeat, we could potentially see a bit of a small altcoin season where we still see some crazy altcoin gains, but not as crazy as what they could get to in the major altcoin season. And then perhaps in the second half of this year, we could end up seeing a significant altcoin season if history simply repeats. And during these type of altcoin seasons where we're seeing massive moves to the downside in the Bitcoin dominance, for example, that move, the Bitcoin dominance went from above 70% to around 40%. And during those massive moves to the downside in the Bitcoin dominance, those are massive altcoin seasons where we see huge gains. I'm talking 100x gains, 500x gains, and some altcoins even 1000x and more. But at the stage that we're at right now, once again, we're not there just yet. We still have some time to go before we reach the next major altcoin season. But with that being said, of course, there's always going to be outliers. There's always going to be some altcoins doing a lot better than Bitcoin, even while the Bitcoin dominance is going to the upside. But ultimately, if the dominance is going to the upside, it just means Bitcoin is doing better than a lot of the altcoin market. Not every altcoin, but a lot of the altcoin market. And then basically, if the Bitcoin dominance is going to the downside like that, that means we're seeing crazy gains in the altcoin market. And so essentially the main takeaway from this video is most likely over the next 1 year or so, perhaps over the next 1.5 years, we're most likely going to see some crazy gains in the crypto market, and especially in around 6 to 12 months from now in the altcoin market. And so honestly, a lot of you watching this video right now will likely make life-changing money over the next 1 year or so, because that is what can happen in crypto during these bull markets. And so if you have any friends or family at all that are interested in crypto or interested in making potentially a lot of money over the next 1 year, definitely share this video around, because opportunities are starting to run out, but you are not too late, at least not yet. Once again, right now we're only just heading into all-time highs for Bitcoin, which historically means we still have a solid year of bull market ahead of us. And if you enjoyed this video and you're taking trades in the crypto market, I would appreciate it if you check out the links down below this video to some of the exchanges. If you're trading crypto anyway, you might as well check it out, because you can actually claim extra bonuses using those links down below this video in the description and in the pinned comment. And also make sure to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed, leave a comment down below, and subscribe to the channel if you are new. And if you actually want to know how to trade crypto, no matter if the price is bullish, bearish, or chopping around sideways in the short term, then make sure to watch these videos popping up right here on your screen. The video in the top left shows you how you can profit from bullish or bearish price action using long positions or short positions, and the video in the bottom left shows you how you can easily profit from choppy sideways price action. But anyway, that is everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.